Did you know that today is the first day of the rest of your life? I'm going to put some frets on this today. So welcome to the next installment of this Donner project. I brought here, as you can see, my fret press. A couple corrections about this Donner guitar. I spoke to Ed yesterday, and turns out this was not sold as a kit. It was sold as a complete guitar at an auction, to which he took it apart and had the artist paint it and that stuff. And didn't pay $60, paid $37.50 at auction for this guitar. So I would have bought that too. So those are the couple corrections. It was not sold as a kit. It was sold as a complete guitar. If you're looking at potentially picking up a Donner, you may or may not want to, depending on how you feel about the work we're having to do to make it playable. And the fretboard, he thinks is Jatoba. So I can't really tell. I'm not, I just assume it's some kind of somewhere in the rosewood family because it's so dark, but it's Jatoba. And what I can say about Jatoba, or whatever wood this actually is, if it's not Jatoba, is that it's a very, very smooth wood. Like it's a lot like an ebony board. That's what it feels like to me. It feels very ebony-like. So very cool there. I did some chip out filling here. I didn't go crazy, but I did the majority of them, and prepped it all up. Now we're ready for frets. So here's my fret press. It's actually just a press, but I got with it, I got a bunch of different plates. So this one's taped as 9.5 for a 9.5 inch radius. I've got every imaginable fretboard radius from, I think, 7 inches all the way up to like 20 something. So every inch and a half up from there. So like 7, 7.25, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, blah, blah, blah. So this goes basically in here. I also have a flat one that has no radius for other things. And so I use this actually for some minor fret repair if I have to replace a fret, things like that. Or in this case, like a complete refret. But I also use it to press the rod magnets in single coil. So my Firecasters, which are basically my take on vintage Telecaster and Stratocaster pickups. I also use these for the slug side bobbins. So you got the screw side, which are threaded in, and then the slug side. So I push them in with this. Goes faster, it's cleaner, and there's less chance of marring the plastic thing. But today we're using it for this. So basically the way this works is it just slides in here and then you get a pin. And you just slide the pin in to lock it in place. You just gotta line the holes. There you go, just like that. Under here I have just a piece of soft wood with a curve in it to cradle the neck. And I just put like a rag over top of that just to protect it a little more, and also keeps it from twisting in there. And then we just go like this and work our way down. So that's what we're going to do. But first we need to figure out how this works here. This is really heavy, so I might have to just move it over a little bit. All right. So this is probably not going to work here. I have to do tabletop or something. Try and do it this way. Okay, so the idea here, so these have all been cleaned out, except for that one. And you just tap it on one end, tap it on the other, and then you press it with the press. Doesn't take Doesn't take much. I'm just going to do a test one here, which you're going to need to come up this way. And you just center it on there. And press it in. Ideally, this will stay there, then you cut the ends and then file and all that stuff. So there's one. So we're going to do this for, you know, all 20, what is this, 12, 22 frets. So 21 more times. So this is a repetitive process, so you're seeing what I'm doing there. So I'm just gonna cut it here, finish the rest of this, and take it back. Even speeding it up, you don't need to see the whole thing, and it makes for a lot of footage to speed up. We'll just cut it here, but you can kind of see where I'm going with this, right? We'll be back with the frets all installed. All right, so now frets are all in. But now I'm just going to hit them with this is the 8-inch radius, just to push on the outsides, put a little bit more pressure on that to make sure they're well seated. So same process, line up the holes. And just a little bit of pressure on each one. Right at the heel here, so I'll just flip this over for a flat surface. There we go. Now it's just a matter of chopping and trimming the ends. Chopping and trimming the ends and filing a bevel. We gotta do a fret level on here, and then probably gonna put some not this crazy glue, but some thinner crazy glue in there with some fretboard dust from all the sanding, just to fill in the little lines here and dress it up all nice. Now I don't have so normally you would use pliers that have like the cutters are like this, and then you grind the tip just so that you can cut as close to the fretboard. And I have a pair somewhere, and just like a 10mm wrench or 10mm socket, it's gone. So there is a cutter on here, though I might have to go to the store and get the proper cutters, and I need crazy glue anyway, so maybe I'll run out and do that, because this will cut these, you know, over here fine, but once you get into the tight spots, it's not going to cut. Or maybe I could just use a Dremel with a cutting bit, but we're upping the risk for accidents. I'm going to try and see here how well this cuts. Yeah, I'm going to just test an end. It cuts, but yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time reaching over here. So looks like I gotta go to the store and get some cutters and some crazy glue. So that's the next process of this journey. I will do that and we'll come back. We're back with tools. This is the cheapest set of nippers at Home Depot, which is close to here. And it's probably the weirdest combo of like tool combo I've ever seen. So I don't know what job or profession had a guy going, you know, it'd be awesome if I had nippers with a hammer claw. You know, what profession do you need to be nipping things, and if something's being stubborn, you claw it out? Or you're clawing out nails and sometimes they won't come out, so you nip them. Is there a profession or job or task specifically that needs something like this? I don't know. I've never seen it. But this was the cheapest pair. It was like 19 bucks Canadian. The regular nippers were all, 50 bucks and up. And I'm not paying 50 bucks for something like this. So I got these. And so if ever I need to pull nails out too while doing a refret, then hey, there we go, right? So we're going to just nip these long ends as close to the fretboard as we can. I think the idea is to try and do it in a way that doesn't put any downward or upward pressure on the fret ends, because you don't want to pull them out. So we got that. I also got some Gorilla Glue. This is just I was just looking for something that was more like, so this stuff here is kind of thicker. And this is not a Gorilla Glue ad or anything. This is what they carry. And you get the most bang for your buck. All the other ones are like tiny little squeeze bottles that dry out after like one use. And so this happened to be the only one that, like, I guess Home Depot's got a deal with Gorilla. So this was the only one that was liquidy. Whereas this one's thicker. So that's to fill in the ends. So we're going to go ahead and try and nip these. Okay. So I'm getting, you can see that, I'm getting close to the edge, but there's still a lot there that that would be a lot of what you call that, filing the edge. I think what I'm going to do is modify this brand new tool that I just bought, run it on the grinder and flatten this. So basically we get the edge closer to the cutting, the blade edge. So right now there's like about a 1 or 2 millimeter gap from where it cuts and where this surface is. And that's pretty much what I'm getting with this, the amount that's sticking out. How did I cut it like this? Maybe if I cut it sideways. No. So I'm going to go modify this. I'll be back. All right. So after modifications, I took a grinder to this. Basically just gets us closer to the cutting edge. And ideally what it'll do is cut us a bit closer to the fretboard. So it means less filing at the end. So we just cut all these fret ends. There, that's one side done. Seems to work better if you start at the smaller frets and work your way down towards the headstock, I think, unless, no, you know what? It seems to work best if you, just so you could see on the left side of the blade, or if you go from away and towards you, or if you have like a special way to hold the neck, like clamped in, I guess, but So I may have to try and I might have to push them back in through the press just to reseat them. Some of them it's pretty impossible to cut without putting any pressure on the fret. All right, about halfway there. The next step is probably to put a little bit of crazy glue in all these little holes. Maybe pack it with a little bit of fretboard dust, and then it'll be filing the edges until they're flush and smooth with the fretboard, and then level the frets, crown, polish, dress the ends, and that will conclude the neck portion pretty much until we assemble the whole guitar and then set it up and see what else it needs. But for now, I think I'm going to do the crazy glue on the ends off camera, just to well, save you the, you know, and that way there I can focus on that too, because it can get quite messy and sticky with crazy glue, and I don't want to be distracted with making sure I'm in the shot and then crazy gluing my thumb to the back of the neck or something stupid. So I'll probably just tape this all off and then drop fill some crazy glue and some dust. But so far we're coming along pretty well, I would say, based on where it started off. It's definitely a lot straighter now. Frets look pretty good. So I will do the crazy gluing stuff and come back with some filing and blah, 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 blah. All right, so we're all glued up. I filled those holes, and I'm just using my fret leveler on a kind of like a semi-rough, probably like 300 grit, something like that. And I'm just sanding it flush. I'm going to taped off, sanding everything flush, flat, and then I'm going to sand a bevel, just a very shallow, or steep actually, like just a slight bevel on the edges of the frets. So now, just basically sanding until we clean off the you know, the fretboard dust that we crazy glued in. So some of this paint is going to end up getting sanded off a little bit. There's no escaping that. Getting there though. What I see is when they've carved the neck, they carved into the fretboard as opposed to carve to the fretboard and then going straight. So I'm having a hard time getting a few spots here. So this tells me they carved maybe a little too steep here and got into the fretboard and angled it a bit. Whereas here it goes nice and straight, and here at the back too. So again, it's, you know, more things about this particular guitar, this particular neck, that just doesn't make it great. All right, so I think on this side I'll be able to do the bevel. So I don't have a beveling file, you know, so I'm just gonna hold it on an angle and just go by feel. So just to show, I don't know if you can see, but just a slight angle. You don't want too steep because then when you fret a string, it'll want to slip off. Some manufacturers actually make their guitars with those angles a little too steep to begin with. So now with this here, you can see there's still a little bit of bump and glue here. I'm just going to scrape it with the blade. It's about as good as that's going to get. And then we'll polish them off and all that stuff. But it actually doesn't feel too bad going like this. It's a little rough, but once you get the dressing file to kind of soften these edges on these bevels, it'll be perfectly fine after that. So now I just have to do the other side. I'm not going to bore you with that. You've seen how I did it here. As far as like for glue, you can see like there's little gaps. Like, see that there's a little gap there. So I just basically pump some glue in there and then pack it with fretboard dust. Covers the hole, and then when you sand it, it looks nice and clean. So I'm going to do the other side and get back to you. All right, so both sides have been glued, sanded, beveled, and I'm just going to hit probably just this end here. I could feel some bite still, and then we'll level out the fretboard. The idea here is just to kind of not feel so much sticking out. That's pretty good. So I'm going to make sure that this is now sitting flat. There is a little bit of glue seepage that kind of went that I'll have to clean up as I go. But we'll make sure this is straight. So this is Fender scale length. So we go with the 25.5. And this fretboard is straight. So, as it should be, because we went and sanded the shit out of it and straightened it out. As far as we can tell. A little bit more glue here. So, with everything being flat, now what we can do is I take a Sharpie and just be careful not to touch the fretboard with it. Just basically marking the top of the frets, right? So then we can tell when everything is level. Because even though these are brand new frets and they're all technically made to a specific dimension, you know, width, height, and all that, they're not all exact, and also once installed, they don't all sit quite exact. And it takes just tiny measurements, basically, of height differences to make a string buzz. So again, like I said in the last video, part one of this is this isn't a how-to. This is my first refret technically. I've done partial refrets and I've done lots of fret leveling and recrowning and all that, but as far as a full-on refret, this is the first time I do it, and I'm learning a lot along the way, and hopefully you are too. But it's more so to show you just how much work this guitar needs in order to be playable. So originally I thought it was a kit. It was not. But that just means that it came from the Donner factory, or the factory that Donners come out of, with a fretboard that was radiused with a twist, which means it was never really playable to begin with. So we're all marked up. I don't know if you could see that on the, and then we get the rough side here. And we basically go back and forth until all the tops of the frets have been touched by this. So with this back and forth, I'm following the radius, right? But I'm also trying to, like, if I do a pass on, I kind of think of it as like in thirds, but there's more movement than that. But if I do a pass on this third of the neck, then I got to do a pass on here in the middle and one on this side and keep it even. And there we go. I don't know if it's gonna catch this on the camera. We could see the marker has been sanded off all the tops. So now these are level, and you can double check that with one of these. Now, when you're using a rocker, you want to make sure you're perfectly straight, because if you go, for example, there's perfectly level. If I go crooked, see, because there's a radius, so you got to make sure you're right down the center line, or like perfectly straight, right? Same thing on these edges here. You don't want to be like this. I can already tell these are going to be pretty level. A little bit here is not level. There we go. Now that's level. I'm going to clean off the fretboard. I'm going to tape it off, and then we'll do the recrowning. All right, so we're all taped off, ready for recrowning. Trying to get the best angle here. So when recrowning, after you've leveled it, you mark up the tops again. Now, opposite from when you're leveling, when you mark these and you level them, you want the tops to have a sanded surface all across, like all the way down, up and down the board. When you're recrowning, see here, cheap little crowning file here. You want to crown it until there's just like a thin black line of Sharpie down the middle. And then that way there you know that you've crowned enough. You don't want to crown past that, because then you're crowning the tops down as well. So you want just like a thin layer at the top, because then once you sand and then polish and all that, you round it off that slight edge that might still be there. But the idea of recrowning is to just crown most of it right up to that top line. Doesn't take much, just a little bit. See, and now this one here, like, it didn't even need that much crowning because the top's already out. So the reason I'm not doing much work here with the crowning is that it took so little off the tops in order to be level that there's still a lot of the original crown there, which is kind of I guess that's a good thing. It goes to show just how level the actual fretboard has been made, which is, you know, by eye. You can see there's just like a faint line left, and in some spots no line, but I'm not putting a lot of pressure down, so it's not cutting fast at all. All crowned. So then comes a fingertip PTSD time. So basically all I'm doing is just sanding it smooth. Don't forget to get yourself a bevy too when you're doing this. Then you get this file. So this file is a diamond cutting edges on both sides. So this side and this side. And then this has a flat uncutting, like non-cutting edge, right? And then this one has a rounded one. It's all smooth. The idea with this is just basically passing over and curving, right? Just to kind of soften the edge of these frets. Just like that. Then once those polish off, it'll be nice and smooth. So I don't know if you could see that on camera. This one hasn't been done. This one has. I can definitely feel it. It's nice and smooth here. And then there's like just sharp ends here. So you do the whole board. And when that's done, I'll hit the whole thing with a higher grit sandpaper and then polish it off with the Dremel, and we'll be done. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera as well. But it's basically just you know, taking this and just knocking the edge off the ends of the crown. That's it. It's just very tedious and repetitive all the way down. The polishing, and pretty sure I did a polishing, like a level and polish thing on previous video, I think. I've done so many videos now that I can't remember what I've already done. But anyways, so we'll skip through that. We'll have the nice fretboard and we'll oil it up, and we'll oil it up and figure out what next. All right, so we're all crowned, dressed, polished. Now we do the big reveal with the untaping. Now I forgot to do my usual trick of putting one strip of tape all the way down and then taping. Makes it easier to remove all this shit, but since I spared you having to watch the whole sanding and polishing part, and make you sit through some untaping. But I'll speed it up. Okay, so the next thing up here would be to clean the wood here. My razor blade, just to clean out a little bit of glue here. There we go. So, what cleaner do I use? Lighter fluid. because it's a quick degreaser and it doesn't stay wet long, which is actually perfect for fretboards. It dries pretty quick. So just like that. These frets are feeling pretty good. Might have to hit them after with the dressing file just to get a few ends a little bit better, but that's because there was a bit of tape on there. But for the most part, like, this is really nice. Frets are nice and level. Fretboard's looking good. All right, so it's clean. So then we do the lemon oil. Yeah, there's still some, you can see the cutting into this. There's a few little minor sharp bits that I can tackle that later. But once that's spread on and coats the whole thing, then you just kind of buff it out. So far, I'd say not too bad for my first full refret. Feel nice. The neck is straight. The fretboard is radius and straight. I mean, it's better than it was. Would I sell this as a service to, like, you know, to do on a PRS, Fender, Gibson, whatever? Not yet. But my plan is to do a couple more refrets, and knowing how much I've learned on this one and how I would do things a bit different on the next one, I think I can get to that point where I can confidently say refrets are no problem. It's not really that hard. It's just an attention to detail, patience, time, and knowing a couple little things that you think, like, you know, if I would have done these steps in this order instead, it would have been better, or whatever, right? But so I think that these frets that I bought, they were originally going to go for this Strat right here. That neck has had a refret from, I don't know who, whoever owned the guitar that neck came off of originally, and like it's not a good job. This job turned out way better than that one. So that'll probably be the next refret that I do, and maybe we'll do it on camera here, and maybe we won't. We'll see. Depends on what mood I'm in. I am human, right? So humans tend to have fluttering moods. So with that, I think we'll leave it there. I got a big fucking mess to clean up over here. There's a lot of dust and pieces of tape and used up sandpaper and stuff. So I'm gonna clean this up, edit this video, and yeah, like I said, I'm gonna probably retouch a few of these edges now that I have like the tape off. I need to go in and just kind of just minor little things to get to where I like things to be. But this as it is pretty playable. But I like them to be a little, you know, I don't want to feel them at all. I'm feeling a little bit, but it's not too bad. Yeah, so the next step will be to build out the body. So that will be the next video. We're going to put everything in the body, all the electronics, build it all out, and then put the neck on, string it up, and play something. Because I realize now that I haven't played anything guitar-wise in the last couple of videos, which is not a bad thing. For one, I'm running out of ideas of what to play, and I don't want to keep playing the same thing over and over again. And second, I'm not really playing anything impressive anyway. So with that, I hope you have a great week, great weekend. And hey, Donner project's coming along good. I'm happy with how this has turned out. I've learned a lot. This particular wood did have a lot of chip out, more than I like. I wasn't so worried because it was cheap neck, but I think in the next one, I thought of a better way to remove frets that will avoid chip outs. Another part of it is taking a soldering iron and heating it up so that it heats up the wood, softens it up a bit so it pulls out a bit easier. That's one of them. The other one, there's a tool that kind of like a fret, like a fret saver thing, and you cut the one end so you can slide this under the fret while you pull it out. And the idea is that it holds the fretboard down while pulling it up. But this particular wood here, though, even just sanding it and working with it, is a very, like, the grain is very, very fine grain, and it's very hard but dry wood. So we got, I can see that a little bit of chip out still showing. It just, it came apart. It's very flaky when it peels up. So lesson learned on that. Got to be more careful with that. But I think it's gonna be playable. So have a good one. Thanks for watching. If you're new here and you're kind of like, how do we get to here? Well, watch 2 videos before this one to kind of get caught up. Thanks for watching. If you're still along for the ride from way back when, you're still hanging out, thanks for that. We're up to like 64 subscribers. Still tiny numbers for the grand scheme of things. But for me, it means there's 64 people, well, 63 because I am a subscriber as well. There's at least a good 60 of us that actually give a shit about what I have to say. So see you on the next one where we're gonna do the body.